this is Yvette. I'm here with another Power Hour, and today we're going to talk about relationships. These are my guests, Michelle and Zach. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey, how are
Hi.
you? What's going on?
I'm great. So, my first question to both of you is, what makes a good relationship?
Well, honesty, trust, basically just getting to know the person very well, knowing the person, and knowing you have an actual bond with somebody.
I think the best relationships start as friendships. So, working your way up, not rushing, building a great start to a good relationship. And honesty is really the key in trust.
Absolutely. I completely agree with both of you. Now, I definitely think we need to touch on some things that may be messing with our generation and the way that we date. There's a lot of social networks out there. There's a lot of dating sites. So, do you think this is interfering with the way we date and the way we interact with our potential mates?
Absolutely. I do not think social media is great. You could be catfished, which, no one wants to be involved in that. And I think it's making people not as social as they used to be, going out and meeting someone in a traditional way. I believe that's the best way to meet someone.
I'm kind of seeing that now as I'm in the dating scene.
And I mean, it's weird because when you're on social media, it's completely different from reality,
Right.
where you're not face to face with the person. You're more of just on a chat log.
On a
And so
screen.
on a screen. And so when you're talking to somebody and you're trying to interact with somebody, you're kind of like, that's kind of like the date nowadays.
Right.
And it's kind of weird because when you go into just talking about a date, when you get to the actual meeting up with somebody, you have nothing to talk about.
Right.
Nothing at all. So.
It's sad. I want to go out. I want to go and get dinner and go bowling. I don't want to be sitting home on my computer, eating by myself, talking to you. That's not fun for me.
Well,
So.
I mean, I will say the benefits though of social media is that you get to meet a wide range of people,
True.
and it's not just people in your area. Now it's just people around the world.
Okay, so my next question to you guys is, how do you feel about Tinder? This
Tinder.
new way of meeting people, I guess, in your area. Do you feel like it's classless or skeezy, or do you feel like it's okay? Do either one of you have a Tinder? How do you feel about it?
I don't have one. I know
Okay.
people that have it, and basically all you see is a picture. And I think, right, you just like it, and that's how you get to
Like
know.
it or dislike.
So you get
Oh,
to
no.
know someone first based off looks,
Oh,
which
no.
are terrible, I think.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
mean,
terrible.
It's not terrible. It's just weird because you're just only judging somebody by their look, and you're not judging them by their personality, by their by anything. Literally, just by look, and it's kind of killing down the entire idea of a relationship and getting to know somebody.
Right. I completely agree with you guys. Personally, I think looks do grab people's attention, and we all do have preferences, which is fine. But on a screen, I just don't think that's the way to pick a mate or to interact with a mate or a potential mate.
Well, I mean, I will disagree with that because there are different opportunities where you can meet other people, through social media. It is possible. I mean, it is possible to start a relationship. I know many people who have actually started relationships through social media.
Do they last?
They do last. Yeah,
Yeah.
they actually do. Shockingly. I mean, it is shocking,
But they do last, and I know the actual traditional relationship isn't there, but it gives it out to a wide spectrum of other opportunities. Because in your area, you may not have the most amount of let's say you're in a small town,
Right.
and when you're in a small town, you basically know everybody. When
Very
it comes
true.
to social media, you're like limitless from whoever you can meet. So knowing that you have the opportunity to meet anybody wherever you want to also broadens your spectrum of knowing who's out there.
Wow, Zach.
That was powerful.
You sold me on that
There
one.
you go.
And I also want to ask you guys, how do you feel about traditional dating? Like maybe meeting someone through a friend or at a get-together, and just going for that talking on the phone, texting, a little bit of both, and then getting into that first date. How do you guys feel about the traditional way of doing things? Like having the man come to the girl's home and say hello to her mom before he takes her out. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, tradition's always better. That's how I always feel.
Okay.
Tradition it should never be lost, tradition. So staying with that whole concept of dating and let's say like from the 1940s like on to before the creation of social media, I think that's where it should really stand.
Well, it comes down to respect. You know, if a guy respects you, he'll come to your house, you know, he'll meet, you know, your father and shake his hand and say, you know, this is the girl I want to date. You know, it comes down to respect. And if he respects you, he'll do the things that are necessarily to, you know, make a good impression. You know, my first date with my current boyfriend for 4 years, you know, he opens the door for me. He pays for dinners. I respect that, and I look forward for that. And, you know, I don't think anyone should deserve anything less, a girl, but I think it's not just for a girl should do that for your guy as well. So I think you should have respect for your guy, and the guy should have respect for you.
Agreed. And I feel like sometimes, you know, with the modern age now, it's a little bit chivalry is a little lost actually.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
100%.
and I think it needs to grow up a little more. And that, you know, that may rely on the parenting, and that may rely on, you know, something else in the family. But I mean, it always needs to be there.
Absolutely. I completely agree with both of you.
Yeah.
So moving on to more sticky situations when it comes to relationships,
Uh-huh.
how do you feel about what they call situationships, where people claim that we're together, but we're not putting a title on it? How do you guys feel about that? Not putting a title on things and making it solid and just sealing the deal and saying, this is my man or this is my woman. How do you feel about those situationships?
So is it more like an open relationship?
Mm-hmm.
I guess relationships without titles. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like
Yeah.
there's a disconnect when you do that?
I know someone who recently who was going out with a guy for a couple of months, and he chose not to give her and himself a title. And it was really important for her to have the title. I think if you're with someone, they should be proud and loud and say, this is my girlfriend or this is my boyfriend. If you're, I think it's just them just trying to get around with other people, because then they could come back and say, oh, you're not my boyfriend.
Absolutely.
So I could go out with someone else, So I think it's important, titles.
It is, and
Exactly.
I mean, titles make up what the relationship is. If you don't have a title, then you're just friends with with like just doing things together. It's weird. I mean, there's a thin line between having a relationship and there's a thin line between just doing things for fun. And when you cross that line and not having a title, then you're basically just doing it for fun, and you're allowing yourself to get hurt more.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
But it also comes down to the fact that it comes down to whoever is in the relationship, and they both decide at the same time. Because relationships are a difficult task. I mean, we've seen divorce happen so many times nowadays, and if there's no title to a relationship, there may be less divorce, and that may be a good thing for the relationship itself. It all depends on the person.
It's funny you say, titles. I think it's funny how people don't say you're in an official relationship until you're on Facebook, until your title is changed on Facebook. So I know a lot of people who make it official but don't make it official on Facebook.
Once again,
Yeah.
social media
Taking
interacting,
over.
taking a
Taking
toll
a toll.
on the way we have relationships today. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with some of the things you guys have mentioned. We clearly see that social media is playing a vital role in our relationships or situationships. And touching back on situationships and weird relationships with no titles, I definitely agree. I think that people should be loud and proud with how they feel about their mate. I think that it solidifies who they are in your life. I mean, I read a great book by Steve Harvey, and he said that a man should profess that a woman belongs to him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a woman should do the same for her man.
100%. It should
exactly.
be equal. There shouldn't be one, who's, obviously there's always one person I feel that shows a little more love than the other, but
Right.
it should be equal. One shouldn't be giving more than the other, because then it won't be a good relationship at all.
Yeah. And I think relationships need to, I personally would want relationships to go back to the way they were before phones, honestly, because before phones, I mean, before social media and everything, it was more of like everybody was open to, talk to everybody. And now it's just kind of like we're all quiet, and when somebody talks to you, it's kind of weird. And I think relationships kept that, I guess, positive feelings towards everybody, and like more of like a social interaction in the real world. Now it's just kind of closed and private.
Right. I definitely agree. And speaking of, how we talk to our mate and the texting or talking to your mate via Facebook, how do you guys feel about speaking on the phone with someone that you're getting to know? Are you guys big fans of that? Or are you like, only text me because when you call me, it's weird, like I need a heads up. How do you feel about talking on the phone with someone that you may date in the next month or so?
With my boyfriend, I'll send him quick texts and say, I'm here, just to update him. But any information I want to tell him, I tell him on the phone.
Wow.
I want to, I want to hear his emotion behind what I tell him. I don't want like a smiley face to see that he's happy. I want to hear him laugh. I want to hear his emotion, because that I'm telling him important things that I want to communicate to him. And texts, I feel, are emotionless. So I mean.
I think texting actually brings more controversy into the relationship, because you don't know what the emotion is behind the text.
100%.
And
A lot of fights start that way.
A lot.
a lot of fights start that way. And if we didn't have texting, it'd be so much easier and so much
Right.
more relaxed. I mean, honestly, it's a weird and sticky situation.
I mean, think about the people now, relationships where people check each other's phones and say,
Yeah.
who are you texting? You shouldn't be texting that girl. You're supposed to be texting me. And I think that's another problem. You don't have privacy, to text someone. And, a lot of relationships, if you don't have trust, they sneak in onto the phone or onto Facebook. So that I think is a huge problem. So.
Well, that also adds in trust issues, I think.
True.
A little bit, yeah.
True. I actually went on a date not too long ago,
Ooh.
and and I will say, I like tradition.
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't do the whole come to the front door thing, but I think going out on a formal date, I think it was very important. And texting is so different. I was texting the person, but when you're sitting there in front of them, it's so different. And I think it's important to interact. Be on the phone, like you said, hear their emotions, see them, be in front of them. It's a great way to interact. It's a great way to really get to know a person, and
Yeah.
texting, I think, should be done when you're saying, hey, I'm gonna meet you here at 10
Right.
o'clock
Yeah.
or at 5 o'clock. There you go, that's it. Send a message, and that is all.
But I'm very curious, so how do you feel about if you're trying to meet the person online for the first time, where do you go from? Do you go straight to the conversation on the phone, or do you go straight to texting?
Well, texting, then phone.
You go texting,
but
phone?
I really appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you.
Thank
You were
you.
fabulous guests.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and stay tuned. We'll have more Power Hour next week.